In the last video, we talked about how we could optimize our decision making based upon my model's definition of information. So in today's video, we're going to talk about group optimization, or how to increase the chance of getting any particular outcome from the perspective of operating as two or more agents interacting with one another. Alright, so group optimization. In the exact same way as the first person perspective requires us to first optimize the honesty, and then optimize the value, and then optimize the strength in that order, we're also going to apply the same priority system to group optimization. If we want our group to have the best chance of getting any particular outcome that is desired, we have to first make sure that the honesty as applied to this group is increased, and then we can start talking about the value that that group has, and then from there we can start talking about the willingness and the capability for that group to perform the action that is required to get the particular outcome that we desire. In the context of a group, we describe honesty as the reliability and quantity of information known by the agents of the system. It's not necessarily the distributed information, it's rather the information that is accessible to the system as a whole at any particular moment in time when the system as a whole is making any kind of decision or action within reality. We can imagine, say, for example, a country that has very intelligent individuals making up maybe a very, very small percentage of the population. But if those individuals are leading and directing the actions of the larger group, then that information is still considered to be part of the honesty of that group. Value from the perspective of groups is the shared strategies, principles, and goals held by the agents of the system. So essentially, if we take some kind of impossible poll that looks at every desire or principle that the individuals within a system have, and then apply it onto the perspective of having any particular goal, if there is some particular outcome that we desire for the group to perform, let's say it's to enact a particular policy within government, then if a significant portion of the people within that country push for that to happen, and then it does happen, we would say that that group of agents has a high amount of value for that particular outcome. And then finally, strength is defined from the group optimization context as the willingness and capability for agents of the system to act on any information required by their shared value. Agents of the system that are responsible for following through with any particular action that the group is trying to accomplish, how willing or how capable are they to do that is a measure of the strength from the perspective of group optimization. So in this video, instead of doing the pictures and examples like we did in the last video, we're actually going to go over a single example of group optimization and analyze some of the possible scenarios that come out of the different decisions that we make as we're trying to optimize our outcome. So the example that we're going to use here is that you and two other roommates are trying to decide whether to buy a washer and dryer or to get an air conditioning unit installed in your house. Honesty in this example is the cumulative information that you and the other roommates have about this particular situation. So let's go over or kind of quantify what some of that information actually is. What is the honesty that is present in this example? You all know that you live in the attic, one of your roommates lives on the main floor, and then the last roommate lives in the basement. You also know that you want the air conditioning unit, the basement roommate wants the washer and dryer, and the main floor roommate is not leaning strongly in any particular direction. They could go either way. You're all willing to put in $300 towards whichever appliance is agreed upon. So you've already agreed that no matter what, you're getting one or the other, and you're willing to put in $300 each. And then finally, you and the main floor roommate do laundry about once a week, while the basement roommate does laundry twice a week every single week. Okay, so now that we have the information or the honesty defined for this example, let's now talk about the value and the strength. These are much simpler to define. The value in this example is the cumulative measure of how much you and the other two roommates feel you should buy either of the appliances. So from the perspective of the group, we're asking how compelled is the group to get the air conditioning unit versus the washer and dryer. And then strength in this context is simply the willingness and capability to follow through with paying the money and getting whichever appliance you want to get, whether it's the air conditioning unit or the washer and dryer. So once you as a group have decided which of those options you're getting, are you actually willing and capable to follow through as a group to get those appliances installed in your house? So now we can start talking about the different ways that we could go about optimizing the situation to get the outcome that we desire as a group. And when I say we desire, I mean you as the agent operating within the group of three people. Within the context of having the descriptions of honesty, value, and strength, you want to find a way of optimizing those those three components in a particular way that has the highest likelihood of getting you towards the outcome that you desire, which is getting the air conditioning unit. In a broader sense, your goal is more than just getting the air conditioning unit. You also want to live in a house where you feel comfortable with your roommates. You want to also feel that your roommates don't feel shorted on the deal because you actually care about them and you're friends with them. And you also want to make sure that what you're getting out of this scenario is actually what you want. There's a possibility that we have to consider that we don't actually want the air conditioning unit. We're initially thinking and have stated to our roommates that we want the air conditioning unit, but is it possible, or could it be possible, that we don't actually want the air conditioning unit? But we need to have some strategy to move forward here. And so in scenario one, what we're going to do is we're going to first try to optimize for strength, then we're going to optimize for value, and then we're going to optimize for honesty. So that is our priority when we're making decisions. We want to first make sure that the group is more willing and more capable of getting whichever appliance we select. And then the next priority is to make sure that we pick either of the appliances, so we have a direction and a choice that we're going to actually commit to and make as soon as possible. And then finally, we're going to start investigating and communicating with one another about what we actually want, what are our needs, and what are our capabilities. So in this scenario, since we're optimizing for strength, we want the group to go out and get the appliance installed as quickly as possible. That is our priority. So what you do is you aggressively harass both roommates about getting the air conditioning unit. You blackmail them with threats of popping their tires or withholding rent unless they give you the money for the air conditioning unit. Both roommates give in and give you their money. You have increased the amount of strength that this group has. This group is now very willing and very capable of going out and getting an appliance. And more so than that, they've also now selected which appliance they're going to get. They have a value that is very strong about getting the air conditioning unit at this point because you have pushed the group in that particular direction. But after you pay for the down payment and get the air conditioning unit installed, your roommates move out of the house on the first day of the next month and block you forever. You are left to make payments on the newly installed air conditioning unit and also have no one to help pay first month's rent. So the result of this scenario, or of optimizing for strength and then value and then honesty, is that the system of agents has now been destroyed and you are left with a hefty bill while your roommates have destroyed their credit. So none of the individuals within the group feel that this outcome was what they desired or is meaningful towards what they would have wanted. Now, obviously, this is a hypothetical. Let's say we do optimize for strength, value, and then honesty, and we actually get the outcome that we had desired. That is completely possible. What I am trying to help you intuit is that with this optimization model, if we use strength first and then value and then honesty, it seems highly unlikely that we would actually get the particular outcome that we're wanting. So in scenario two, you're going to be optimizing first for the value. You want to make sure that either of the roommates are picking which of the appliance they actually want and you're committing to that. That is your first priority. We already have two individuals within the group that are defining some amount of value in either direction. So you want the air conditioning unit and your other roommate who lives in the basement wants the washer and dryer. But you still have a third party, your main floor roommate, who doesn't feel particularly in any one direction. So your objective at this point with optimizing the value is to get him now on your side of getting the air conditioning unit and maybe also getting your basement roommate to also want the air conditioning unit. That is your first priority. And the second priority is then to go out and get the appliance and to have the willingness and capability of spending the money to get whichever appliance you are deciding to install inside the house. Honesty in this case would be the last priority. What is going to happen if we get either of the appliances in the future? In the second scenario, you point out to your roommate who lives on the main floor that the air conditioning unit would be far more convenient than the laundry. You mention how both of you only do laundry once a week and that going to the laundromat isn't even that bad. This roommate agrees that they don't do laundry a lot and that getting the air conditioning unit seems like the better choice. From here, we can see that we are trying to increase the value, or that is to say, we are trying to increase the decision that one of the members of our group wants to make. And in this case, you're trying to get him to want the air conditioning unit more. You're trying to make him have value for the air conditioning unit. But the other roommate is unhappy, stating that all of you would save money if you got a laundry machine. You argue back that it wouldn't be that expensive, and since only one of us cares about going to the laundromat, the air conditioning is clearly the better choice. The main floor roommate says that maybe the basement roommate has a point, but you cut them off and firmly state that the laundry machine is far less important than living in a house that isn't sweltering. The main floor roommate, not wanting conflict, agrees with you. With a 2/3 majority, you all get the air conditioning unit. So now we're seeing that the strength is being our second priority. We are going to make a decision and go and do it. That is what we're optimizing for here. So after the dust has settled and you've installed the air conditioning unit, after several months, you realize that due to the added cost of payments for the air conditioning unit, combined with the extra utility costs of electricity, you and the main floor roommate are struggling to keep up with the rest of the bills. You enjoy having the air conditioning, but the roommate on the main floor doesn't feel much of a temperature change and is now unhappy with the extra expense. The roommate who lives in the basement informs you that they are moving in with their partner to reduce their monthly expenses. So we have pushed the group to decide on a decision and then to go and perform that action, but the result of that, the system of agents is mostly intact, but has an overall dissatisfaction with the outcome. So that is to say, if we took the cumulative value of if we actually got to a desirable outcome from the group's perspective, we would say that we actually didn't make a valuable decision that got us towards a meaningful outcome that we would have desired had we known more information. If we knew that this outcome would be the outcome of our decision, as a group, we probably would not have made this decision. It's still totally possible that if you optimize for value first, and then for strength, and then for honesty, the group will get to an outcome that was desirable or was meaningful for the group. If what we're trying to do is have the highest likelihood of getting to a meaningful or a positive outcome, it seems that optimizing for value first, and then for strength, and then for honesty will not have the most likely chance of getting us to the meaningful outcome that the group had desired. And finally, scenario 3. Surprise, surprise, the optimization method that we're going to use in the final scenario is honesty, and then value, and then strength. In this scenario, what we're going to try to do first is get as much information as we can about the outcomes that we desire, as well as what is the group actually valuing, and then also what do we actually think is going to happen if we make any particular decision, and how are we actually coming to that conclusion. So we're going to investigate the information that we have, and we're going to try and increase the amount of information we have about the decision we're about to make. In order to optimize for honesty, you ask the roommates how they feel about the temperature of the house. The main floor roommate says that although they can't stand heat, it's only really unbearable 1 month out of the year. The basement roommate says that the basement is cool all year round, if not too cold in the winter months. The main floor roommate really doesn't need AC outside of maybe 1 month of the year, so it really doesn't seem like a valuable or meaningful thing to get for them. And the basement roommate does not need the air conditioner. There is no need for them to get it. And then you ask both roommates how they feel about doing laundry at a laundromat. The main floor roommate says that they don't have a car, and so they have to either walk to the laundromat or get a ride from someone, which is inconvenient but not unbearable. The basement roommate says that because they work in construction, they actually like the fact that the laundromat has industrial washers that clean their muddy work clothes better, but the 2 trips a week cost them a lot of money and time. The washer and dryer, from the perspective of the group, with this information now known, seems a bit more reasonable. So you look up the cost of the air conditioning unit, and it turns out that the air conditioning unit will require a down payment of $1,000 with an additional 2 years of payments to be made. In order to actually get air conditioning, you would have to be making payments with your roommates for the next 2 years. So then you ask both roommates how they would feel about making these payments for the air conditioning unit. The main floor roommate has no strong feelings. They actually don't care if you have to make extra payments for the next 2 years. But the basement roommate doesn't want to be locked into another financial obligation for the next 2 years, and points out that you also shouldn't want another bill since your part-time job hasn't been giving you hours as of late. Not only do they not want the financial obligation of paying for the next 2 years towards an air conditioning unit, they also are pointing out that you aren't actually making that much money right now, and it's going to be a financial strain on you. And so that should affect which of the appliances you actually want to get. Now that you have more information about the decision to be made, you can now start optimizing the value. So now you can start picking as a group, what decision should you make? What you do is you all put the choice up to an anonymous vote to decide what you should do. So we're going to take an anonymous poll of every roommate and see which appliance they want to install in the house. The washer and dryer wins with a unanimous outcome, and so you all pool your money and purchase a pretty good set off a secondhand website. So it seems in this hypothetical, you've actually decided to do the washer and dryer. You've realized that you don't want to spend that much money on the air conditioning unit. And so now you're moving actually more towards the washer and dryer because it seems that you would actually save a decent amount of money. And then the result of this is that all of you save an extra bit of money and time on the laundry. You buy a personal AC unit and are able to handle the hot parts of the summer. The group as a whole seems to be intact. More people's desires are getting a meaningful outcome than the air conditioning unit would have provided them. Although as an individual, you could have value that contradicts the value of making your roommates feel meaningful or feel satisfied. But if you want to live in a house with people that you care about and you want to make decisions as a group that work towards what everyone feels is meaningful or is worth going towards, then you're going to have to actually care or investigate what they actually want and what they actually need. So although the example that we just went over is a hypothetical and all of the outcomes were made up and constructed from the very beginning, it is supposed to give us a kind of understanding of why we want to be optimizing with honesty first, and then value, and then strength. If we don't have a lot of information as a group about what we want to do or how we should do that thing or what will happen if we do any particular decision, then the outcomes that are going to occur are in general going to be less likely to give us a desirable outcome. With value, if we don't all value the same thing, then when we get to any particular outcome, although some of us will be happy, some of us will be unhappy. So from the perspective of a group optimization model, if we're trying to optimize the amount of value that people have within a group, then we have to all start making decisions towards things that we actually all care about. We have to all feel that there is some meaningful shared goal that we are working working towards that we all in some way care about. Finally, we have to exist within a group that is actually capable and willing to go out and do the things that is required by the group value or by the decision that the group is making as a whole. Although in this case, it seems that we're taking a very democratic approach to this in that we are having people vote and then everyone has an equal say in the outcome of what we're going to end up doing. This model can also be used for groups that have a single source of power with many other agents operating within that source of power. One individual or a group of individuals who are largely making the decisions that come out of that group, then we would say that the value and the honesty is highly concentrated in those few individuals. Whether or not they can actually follow through with any action is going to rely on the capability of that group as a whole. And the outcome that is going to come from that can be described as undesirable outcome from the perspective of the group, despite the single or small group of individuals directing them towards that direction. Although a few people are happy within the group about the outcome, the majority of people are unhappy. And although that doesn't necessarily mean that the system is going to break down, it makes it much harder to have a cohesive working system because the parts of the system no longer want to interact in a way that supports the actions of that group. And that's why it's so difficult to have a group of people that mostly or entirely disagree about what they should be doing or why they should be doing things. So now that we've talked about from the first person perspective as an individual agent, how we optimize our decisions, and also how from a group perspective, how we can optimize decisions, we're going to start making moral statements. We have thought about what can we do and how can we get to the things that we desire. There's no prescription. There's no you should. I am prescribing a priority system to get to the outcomes that we desire. I haven't applied any moral reasoning onto that priority system. I haven't said if you do the priority system this way, then you are going to be a better person than if you do it this way. Rather, if you do it this way, it seems you are going to have a higher likelihood of getting the outcome that you desire. But now we're going to start saying things like you should be honest, or you should feel value for yourself, or you should be as strong as you can.